Sports Hub STL is presented by DraftKings, where the crown is yours. Happy Taco Tuesday, everybody. Brenden Schaeffer, Randy Karraker, The Randy Karraker Show, featuring Brooke Grimsley, who's out on maternity leave. Brendan in every Tuesday. Good to see you, sir. How you doing?
Good. I'm doing well. It was a good holiday weekend and ready to rock on this Tuesday.
So,
get things going.
I got to tell you, I spent 11 hours on Sunday smoking a brisket, and it was delicious. I did a really good job, if I should say so myself. Very happy with myself, and I'm proud. The brisket was delicious.
All right. Well, that's exactly the way you want to kick off the summer. So it's good to hear that you had a good time with that. Had a great weekend. We were up in the family farm in Northeast Missouri whereabouts. And, as of the middle of last week, the weather was supposed to be just dreadful. And then it got better. It cleared up. And so we had a great weekend.
Good. What do you do out there at the farm?
We fish. We sit around the campfire. We have
s'mores.
Yes. My son was big on the s'mores this weekend. So hang out. A couple adult beverages probably involved in the weekend as well.
Well
so
done.
Good time.
Proud of you.
Yep.
The Cardinals swept the Diamondbacks over the weekend and then fell in the opener of a 3-game series in Baltimore yesterday, Memorial Day 5-2 loss. We'll get to that in a moment. But that 8-4 run. So, Brendan, I think we've talked about it. That run where you played Philadelphia, Kansas City, Detroit, Arizona. I thought that was a key portion of the season, those dozen games for the Cardinals. They finished that up 8-4 after the 3-game sweep of Arizona. And I don't know if the Cardinals are going to be able to sustain this. By the way, yesterday was the 1/3 point of the season.
Okay.
It
happened quick.
4 games. Yeah. So they're a third of the way in. I believe that this team has the physical makeup and ability to be in the race all year long. I think the players have that physical ability. Now it's just a matter of being able to sustain and stay healthy over the course of the next few months. And part of this, the biggest part of it, is being able to mentally engage and stay engaged for 6 months.
Yeah, and that's a challenge for any team. And this is a team where we talk about there are some younger players and some guys who haven't been through the wars quite as many times, or veterans on the team, but lots of young guys in this core and guys who we're seeing, really step onto the scene in this way for the first time. Guys like Victor Scott II, like Matthew Liberatore has been all-star caliber, but what does that look like sustained over a full season? I don't know that we could say we've got lots of questions about that. We just haven't seen it play out for these guys, and so it's going to have to happen once.
Matthew Rocchio is here, and so we played a game this morning on the TV show, and I'm going to play it with you guys early on here in this show, okay? Start one, bench one, cut one. Victor Scott II, Mason Wynn, Ivan Herrera. Start one, bench one, cut one.
Oh, my gosh. You didn't make it easy, did you?
Nope. That's the goal.
Oh, boy. Mason Wynn is the shortstop, man. There's nobody else. I think of it in terms of, what you have coming behind those players. Mason Wynn's got to be my start one. My goodness. I don't want Victor Scott on my bet. I don't like this game. I'm going to come out and say I don't like this game.
It's diabolical, isn't it?
It is diabolical. Like I'm thinking offense, like in Victor Scott's offense has trailed off a little bit. My gosh, I think instead of making sure you're managing the trade value, to cut him would be rough. But I'll bench Herrera, cut Victor Scott. I hate this game. On a Tuesday morning, you've already got me up in my feels.
Okay, Matthew, what do you think? Start one, bench one, cut one.
Mason Wynn, Ivan Herrera, and
Victor
Scott. 3 really good players that we're going to.
Scott. Oh, by the way, happy birthday this coming week to Herrera. He turns 25. Scott's 24. Wynn is 23.
I'm going to start Victor Scott II.
Okay.
I'm going to bench Mason Wynn. I'm going to cut Ivan Herrera. And we can get to why I'm going to start Victor Scott II a little bit later if you want.
Okay. Yeah, we are going to get to that. I will say that I started Mason Wynn, benched Victor Scott, and cut Herrera simply because I think it's easier to find a bat that's a DH bat or a corner bat than it is to find a shortstop that can hit and a center fielder that can hit. I'm big on building up the middle, and if I can build up the middle with guys that can also offensively contribute to the team, that's where I'm going. And to me, if you can have a good offensive shortstop even though there's a lot of them running around, it seems, but it's still a really hard thing to find. And by the way, the Cardinals shortstop is the best defensive guy in all of baseball.
I was going to say he's way up there and outs above average, all those defensive stats as well. I think he's shown he can handle the bat. I think Victor Scott can handle the bat too. I'm not worried about Victor Scott's offense trailing off to a point like it did kind of last year where you suddenly look up and you're not really sure about his spot in the daily lineup. I think he's going to be just fine. And if he's hovering around that low 700s for OPS, I can certainly live with that. But the more I think through this question now, I have answered it in a different way. The question of, well, who would you extend on a contract? And I said, without hesitation, Mason Wynn and Victor Scott. So I guess for me to say that Herrera rises above Victor Scott in the pecking order, the way you asked the question today, is maybe not exactly the way I would have answered it in the past. But I do think Victor's offense may just end up being more along the lines of average. And I think Herrera, yes, you can find those DH bats. And yes, I don't know positionally where he fits, but he might be the best bat in the organization 2-3 years down the road. That's the other aspect of that.
All right. One of the cool things about the weekend was that you had different heroes every day. Friday, you had the bases clearing triple from Arenado, and the Cardinals win that game 4-3. He needs to come up with the triple in the 7th inning. Then you have Jordan Walker with a couple of hits, including the game-winning hit on Saturday. And then on Sunday, you have Mason Wynn with a homer on Mason Wynn Jersey Day. Arenado makes the incredible play by the stands and held him out of the lineup yesterday. But the Cardinals are doing things that winning teams do. When you have a group that isn't reliant upon 1 or 2 or even 3 guys, that you look everywhere in the lineup, everybody has contributed to a win this year. That is not typical of bad teams. It's something that good teams, it's pretty much a common denominator that you have a different hero every day. And the Cardinals are playing that way right now.
Yeah, and I think about the game where Walker comes through big offensively. There were defensive moments in that game that did not go the Cardinals' way. And a little bit of self-inflicted adversity, if you will, because, Walker probably, if he had it to do over again, would try to just keep that ball in front of him rather than make the spectacular play, which ended up being very costly. You have the play in center field where they just couldn't find the ball between Donovan and the center fielder. And, it ends up being adversity that the Cardinals have to bounce back from. It's good to see that there are moments in games, not everything is going smooth. There are things you have to try to work your way back from, and their ability to do that as consistently as they have has been a pretty impressive aspect of this run.
Yeah, and as much, you take a look at that snapshot, bad play by Walker on Saturday, no doubt about it. But, man, if you would have told me that after 54 games that he'd be playing the kind of outfield that he's playing, I would have said, okay, I'll take that. I kind of think that for the most part, and I haven't even looked at his numbers, but he is going to wind up being above average. I don't know if he'll ever wind up being great. Yeah. I don't know if he'll ever be Dave Parker in right field, but I think Walker has or Jason Hayward or one of those guys. But I think he has a chance to be pretty good out there. I think he can be as good as J.D. Drew was in right field.
Yeah, and when a play like we saw over the weekend is what we kind of consider to be atypical of what season he's had, that tells you he's definitely moving in the right direction on the defense.
Yeah, and then yesterday, I'll tell you what, Dylan Carlson released from those cold, dead hands and hits a 3-run homer.
That was something, wasn't it?
5-2 game. Yeah, good for him. He's a nice kid, and he's not hitting well. I don't know what happened to him, or if he got broken, if baseball figured him out after 2021. Obviously, he got hurt a lot. That didn't help him at all. But he's not the player that the Cardinals, especially John Mozeliak, expected him to be. Probably never will be that player. Yesterday might have been the highlight of his career.
Yeah, I think for Dylan Carlson, the league figures out all these young players, right? And then you have to find a way to kind of hit back. And for whatever reason, lack of consistent confidence, whatever between the ears, it just has not played out for him in a way that he's been able to do that consistently. You still see glimpses and flashes of it yesterday as an example. I think he was probably up for that game a little bit playing against the Cardinals. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it just clearly nobody would say that Carlson's career has gone the way that you hoped that it would, or anybody hoped that it would when he was drafted so highly.
And you were around the team. I was around it a little bit. And while he does have a really strong skill set, I never thought that he appeared to be the most intense competitor that was out there. He didn't seem to have those Michael Jordan tendencies where he would do anything to win.
Yeah, I would agree with that interpretation. And that's sometimes a hard thing to kind of ascertain when you only get glimpses of guys. But yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair way to frame it. And if what was missing for that to come out in him, we may never know, but it just seemed like, push came to shove pretty often where he kind of would have to fight for his opportunities. And it's like, maybe if it didn't go his way right away, it was kind of the fight wasn't there to be able to battle through some of those things. And it's hard to speculate on all of that, but certainly it didn't materialize the way that you wanted to see. And so we sit here and go, yeah, what might have been, but also, did he ever really have the physical tools? No question about it. But the next level that you have to have at the highest level of baseball, I don't know if he ever fully figured that out.
No, and there were a couple of things down the stretch. It was actually Labor Day of 22, and they sent him out for a rehab assignment. I think it was a wrist injury. Sent him out to Memphis for a rehab assignment. Tyler O'Neill got hurt on a Friday night, and without having any rehab at all, they bring Carlson back, and he was not 100%. That hurt him. And then I think last spring, not the spring of 25, but the spring of 24, the last game of spring training when he ran into Jordan Walker,
yep,
got hurt. He had a really good spring, and I don't think he ever really recovered from that loss of playing time. The injury causes him to lose playing time. I think the Cardinals lost confidence in him playing consistently. He had a terrible year, and then they just let him walk.
Yeah, I think that was probably the crux of the entire thing, because he was swinging the bat pretty well in that spring. And so you wonder, all right, if he's one of those guys where you need a lot of things to be going in your direction to get the most out of the player and to really get that consistent momentum, he had it until it's taken away again through a freak injury, and maybe didn't have the fortitude to build it back up again and get it right back to where it was. And that was unfortunate, but I think by the time it was all said and done, they traded him for Sean Armstrong. Was that the deal? Yeah. And it was that was about the value that he had at the time, unfortunately.
All right. Matthew said that he was going to talk a little bit about Victor Scott, and he's used his fancy numbers here, which are great. And by the way, Victor Scott on pace for 50 stolen bases this season. When's the last time the Cardinals stole 50? Was that Vince?
Oh,
probably
God.
Vince in 1990, maybe-ish.
I should know that, but I think you're correct, because I think the last 40 was Renteria.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so yeah, I think it's gonna be. Yeah, I think it's gonna be Coleman if we go back.
Okay, we'll double check that. But you have the fancy numbers that say that Victor Scott is one of the best center fielders in all of baseball. Is that what we're thinking here?
Well, they're not my numbers, Randy. I can't take credit.
They're fancy.
They're Baseball Savant and Fangraphs incredible numbers. Uh-huh. And what they have right now, first of all, if you want the offensive numbers,
yes.
Victor Scott right now, so he's on pace for 50 stolen bases. That's obviously if he gets the at bats, he should. 719 OPS and a 102 OPS plus. So he's just over average at the plate, but he is third in Major League Baseball for defensive runs saved as a center fielder. He is tied for third in range, and he is third in outs above average. That's according to according to Fangraphs, excuse me. And then according to Baseball Savant, when you look at their percentile rankings, he's 92nd base running run value. He's 94th in field run value, and that's percentile. So that being 94th is very good. Range, they have him at 99th percentile, sprint speed 100th percentile, and arm strength 70th percentile. So, pretty good at a pretty important position.
I would say
top
so.
3 in Major League Baseball at the most important metrics for the position. Nothing, no big deal. So, that's why I went with Bye, because if he can be an above average hitter and then steal bases at a 50 stolen base level while being a Gold Glove, Platinum Glove almost level center fielder, you don't get that very often.
No, that's great. By the way, shocker here, Delino DeShields 55 stolen bases in 1997.
Yeah, I wouldn't have had that.
Did not see that coming. But the points about Victor Scott are very well taken. Victor, a couple of years ago, I don't know if it was 2 or 3, you might remember, Brendan, he was the Gold Glove center fielder in all of minor league baseball. Rawlings hands out Gold Gloves for minor league baseball, but they don't do it for AA, AAA, single A. They do it for all of the players in minor league baseball. And he was considered the best center fielder in all of minor league baseball. So the fielding numbers, to me, not a surprise. Actually, none of what he's doing is a surprise to me. He's doing it quickly, but I still think that he's learning and getting better on the job too.
Yeah, and that had to happen after last year. He was overmatched at the plate, and I feel like that's a hard thing not to take into the field sometimes. His instincts are what I think we have seen a significant growth in and because he's put the work in. There's been no doubt about that. The physical tools and the ability to do it in the outfield, he's special when it comes to his speed and the physical ability. But I think the jump he's made with his instincts, where last year you would see him make some good plays, but there would also be the jumps that weren't quite as strong, and he could just make up for it with his physical tools. And now you're seeing the combination of a lot of those things coming together in a really special way that's made him one of the best defenders in Major League Baseball, which could put him on that Gold Glove track for sure.
Okay, so I've said this a lot, and I'm taking nothing away from Lars Nootbaar, who's been a fine leadoff hitter for the Cardinals. Victor Scott is just, to me, what a leadoff hitter should be. And yes, his on base is going to have to get a little bit better. But ultimately, I would like to see Victor Scott as a Cardinal leadoff hitter. Do you guys agree with that?
I think that's the goal. I think that's the hope. And is it a question of maybe not throwing too much at him too quickly? Do you want to be overwhelmed by his numbers from down in the lineup before you kind of give him that role on a more consistent basis? The on-base percentage has been actually pretty good. I would say 346 this year for me is enough to have him be a leadoff batter. It's actually, for the moment, higher than Lars Nootbaar in OBP this year. It's Newt down to 344, which is, down considerably. He's been struggling a little bit more recently, more strikeouts than walks over the last week and a half or so by far. But yeah, I think eventually that time comes. I don't know when's the when for that, because you could talk about Nootbaar in particular struggling of late and say, well, maybe now would be a time to try that out. But where does Nootbaar fit better in the lineup? Do you have to somehow have him now in an RBI spot more toward the middle of the order? Is Victor Scott ready for that? Does the jump, change something about his confidence or momentum, and where you just want to say, hey, we're getting from him right now is great. We're winning games as a team. So do you make a change based on individuals when the team is still performing? Is maybe another question I would have.
Yeah, I think I would not be at all bothered by Lars Nootbaar hitting third. And I know that this would move your most expensive guys down in the lineup. But if I have Walker, Scott, Wynn, Nootbaar, Wilson, maybe Donovan, and then Arenado, I can live with that.
Yeah, I would consider switching Donovan and Nootbaar in that.
I'm fine with that too.
Because I feel like Donovan's done such a great job. The season overall numbers are much better than Nootbaar's, but that's just because of a recent slump for Nootbaar. Either way, I think you're looking at a lineup that has real balance and real potential to do a lot of different things to teams when you're talking 1 through 6. And then you get down through the bottom third of your order, and then it's waiting for guys like Walker or Gorman if Burleson is in there, and you're going to have a catcher in there as well. Suddenly you have some really good length to this lineup if everybody performs in their roles.
All right. Cole Bassett's left foot asks us if the day of the 100 stolen base player is over. Last year, there were a couple of guys that had really good stolen base seasons. My initial answer is no. I think that the stolen base will come back, and I think we will have a guy get to 100. Last year, Ellie De La Cruz had 67. Shohei had 59. I could see a guy like Ellie De La Cruz getting on base a little bit more, although he hits a lot of extra base hits too. But I could see a guy like that getting to 100. I could see a guy like Scott getting to 100. I think what it's going to take is a guy that doesn't hit for a ton of power, that's on first base a lot.
Yeah, and Victor Scott, only a couple of home runs this year, so that he might profile to be that. He steals a couple of extra doubles from time to time because of his speed. And right now, batting lower in the lineup has meant fewer plate appearances. Right. So you probably juice that up closer to already. Maybe he'd be 20-22 instead of 16 stolen bases. His percentage of only being caught once is very impressive. Yeah, there are guys like, and I think about the guy that's just come up for Tampa Bay more recently, Chandler Simpson. Oh, yeah. He's got 14 and has only played in 32 games. And but you look at his on-base percentage down to 322. You have to have maybe that unique combination of not a ton of power, but the type of speed that all these guys that we're talking about have, and then they get on base a lot to be able to have really good plate discipline and walk a lot and probably be the leadoff man, right? Because if you're Victor Scott and you're getting on base with a leadoff single, green light. Other opportunities during the game, you may not have the green light because there might be somebody in front of you on the base paths.
It's interesting, Brendan, because the stolen base is a kind of a lost art. Teams don't use it as much. We all wish that they would use it more. I had no idea that Luis Robert was leading the majors in stolen bases with 21.
I
didn't realize he was playing enough to steal that many bases.
I knew he was up there because I was checking a couple of weeks ago when I was just thinking about, oh, that guy's got to be rescued from the White Sox. Somebody's got to come and get him, and they'll probably get way better production. And his numbers overall have been so far down. I mean, his OPS is below 600. He's hitting 191. It just seems like he is stat padding. He is getting out there for a bad White Sox team, and he's like, how many bases can I steal? Let's just do it that way because my power hasn't been great this year. I'm not really doing a lot offensively. So when he gets out there, it feels like he's just going and seeing if he can maybe have something that he can be the best in this year, and that might be stolen bases.
All right, there's let's turn to. If Scott simply hits 250 with some walks, everything else he brings to the table makes him an overall top 5 center fielder and extension worthy this offseason. Agreed, although I think that he will hit better than 250, and I think that more than some walks. I like to have my leadoff hitter with at least a 360 on base. So I'd like to have that. I want to go back to the Dan W. chat. He said, try and move Burleson at the deadline or sooner. Open up a spot for Gorman to DH every few days. I don't think the Cardinals have seen enough of Gorman to trade Burleson to give Gorman an opportunity.
Gorman is up in the air for whether he'll be on the team next year, in my opinion.
Agreed.
Burleson's not. Like, the only reason they would trade Burleson is if there's a team saying, hey, we really want Burleson, and you're getting something of significant value for him. I don't think the Cardinals go, well, to clear a space for the guy that's not really performing as well, we're going to trade away this player. What do we get for him? I don't really care. We're just trying to clear a spot. That's backwards thinking, in my opinion, on the way that would play out. Burleson, I feel like, isn't a guy that is seen as much in that runway conversation because the Cardinals already feel like they know what he is. He's a guy that he's going to be a plus bat for them, whether he's an everyday player, a platoon player, what's his position, who knows, but they feel like they have confidence in the bat moving forward this year and beyond. So I just don't see him as a guy they trade just to clear up a space for a guy that could also not be around next year if he doesn't perform.
I'm with you 100% there. And the one thing, and I don't think this happens anymore in baseball, and I don't even know if the guy is out there, but I would trade the reason that I would move a guy like Alec Burleson is to trade for the right-handed hitting Alec Burleson.
Right. Yeah.
Trade him to a team that needs the left-handed hitter and has the extra right-handed hitter. Trade for the exact same player, but happens to hit right-handed.
Yeah, although I don't know if the Cardinals are actually as overloaded with lefties as we think they are, because like I said, I think Gorman's future is up in the air. So if you're thinking about, all right, Nootbaar, Donovan, those guys are locked in. Victor Scott locked in. Who am I missing? How many more lefties? Because I like the idea of having 4 lefties to 5 righties if that's going to be your balance.
The thing is, and you don't know how they're going to perform up here, but your 2 main bats in the system, Weatherholt and Chase Davis, are also left-handed hitters.
Yeah, I'm not ready to anoint Chase Davis on that. I would say Weatherholt obviously is someone you'll have around. I don't mind that though, because predominantly you're facing right-handed pitching anyway, right? So even if the breakdown is 5 lefties and 4 righties, I think I'm okay with that. The one thing with Burleson is the same thing it is with everybody else. You've got Burleson, Herrera. I'll put Contreras into that category. You've got these guys who obviously their bat is what you want in the lineup, but positionally we're still trying to figure out, well, okay, Contreras can go to first, but then if you were to think about the archetype of Herrera as a player, you'd go, yeah, maybe can they move him to first? Well, they just did that with their last catcher, and they don't really have that spot available. And then what's Burleson? Well, first base or right field. Jordan Walker is the guy out there that actually defensively of the 4 is the best defensive player that we're seeing, right? Contreras has been good at first, but he's obviously probably not as much of a long-term fixture 3 to 5 years down the road. So yeah, that would be the one reason, is if you had a trade where it made sense because what you're getting back positionally helps your roster make more sense if you were to trade somebody like Burleson.
Eric Cleveland has one. Until Herrera starts to catch, there is no DH spot available. Man, and talking to people around the park, I was over there on Friday talking to coaches and people around the team.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've heard the same thing. They just don't see it with Ivan Herrera as a catcher. He likes catching, so they want to pacify him a little bit. But I don't believe, and I think he'll play against teams that don't run, but I don't believe that they ever think that Herrera is going to be an everyday catcher. And oh, by the way, everybody loves Pages behind the plate.
Yeah, and look, I understand where Cardinals fans are coming from with this, because especially lately, Pages' numbers before the home run yesterday were kind of starting to slip pretty significantly, where we say, hey, we don't really care what he hits. It's just about him defensively. Mm-hmm. The Cardinals feel that way. They really do. But you want a little bit of something from your catcher position if you can. And Herrera obviously provides a ton. But I think it is the single biggest misconception that Cardinals fans have about this team is, well, why isn't Herrera catching every day? It would be an easy way to fit in the guys that you're wanting to get runway for. It's just so simple. Why don't they do it? All right, well, ask yourself, if it is so simple and they're insisting not to do it, what does that indicate about the way that they feel about these players respectively? Not just Herrera in a vacuum, but what Randy said as well about Pages and how much they really do like him behind the plate.
And some people just instinctively have the ability to manage a group of people like a pitching staff. And Pages has that. Pages, a great explanation. It's like, okay, and BT had this morning on the TV show, Brad Thompson. We were talking about Pages, and he said, you know how like you could study for a test and think you know everything, but then once you start the test, you realize you don't have it. And he said Pages is a guy that does all the studying, does all the work, and then he gets behind the plate and he retains it all. He understands everything about every hitter. He knows everything about every pitcher. He knows their strengths. He knows the hitter's weaknesses. And that's part of what makes him great. Some people have the ability to ingest and retain that information. Some people don't. And I don't know about Herrera. I do know that his catcher's ERA is way higher than Pages' catcher's ERA. Apples to apples, working with the same pitching staff. And it's probably like me no, it wouldn't be like me because I never studied. It'd be like somebody with test anxiety who studies really hard, and then you get to the test and you have no chance.
And I'm not saying that Herrera has no chance, but when the guy you're being compared to in the decision process daily is a guy that is acing the tests and shows up prepared and you know is able to let that play out in games, and the teacher notices, like the Cardinals have noticed this about Pages, and they really value it and appreciate it. So that's the guy they want with the pencil in his hand, if we're still keeping the test analogy.
Yeah.
And the one way that this turns around for Herrera behind the plate is if his bat just continues to be something you have to keep in the lineup. And frankly, the Cardinals start to fade out of the race, and then you can go back to saying, all right, in August, September, give him as many starts as he can handle, so that by next year, we're not still talking about this and asking about this. We're either telling him, oh, based on what you did in August and September, Ivan Herrera, we actually do believe you can be an 80 game a year catcher or more. Or they kind of already believe that this is probably the case, but maybe you're not going to stick it as behind the plate as a regular catcher for a contending team. And so we'll take the offseason to tell you which other mitt to grab so that you can have some additional flexibility, and we'll move you, not just DH you, but we'll, pick up a first base mitt, or you pick up a right field glove and start to learn another position, even if it right now looks like there's roadblocks on the roster for him to be able to do that. If he's the bat that they want to carry, I'm thinking 3+ years down the road when Contreras' contract is expired, and we'll see about where Walker is. We'll see if Burleson, that's probably the way. But I don't know, Randy, short of the Cardinals falling out of the race and they're a sub 500 team, if they can feel like they'll take the lumps with Herrera behind the plate and have that be sort of the runway concept. I don't know if they're willing to do that.
And I don't know how much. Last year, Ivan Herrera was 4 for 59 throwing out base runners. Yeah. This year, he's 0 for 7.
Yeah.
So maybe that runway has already been granted to him, especially because of the way Pages has performed. And by the way, Pedro throwing out 32% of base runners this year. And I mentioned the earned run average this year. Pages catcher's ERA 3.59, Herrera's 5.70. And that, to me, is a real thing. That when it's that dramatic and one guy catches and has an ERA that's substantially higher or lower than the other guy, that says something to me.
And to be fair, the idea of runway was not supposed to be like a couple weeks plus spring training, but when it is that dramatic and when it does seem to be that clear, and the Cardinals are clinging to their priors a little bit coming into spring training, I think they would have said, we love Pedro Pages behind the plate. We're not sure if Ivan Herrera can stick. And then what they saw with their eyes through spring and then into the early portion of the regular season before Ivan Herrera got injured, that kind of backed up what they already believed. And so maybe the runway was a little bit shorter for that, but his bat's keeping him in the lineup. So that's a credit to him.
And it will always keep him in the lineup. And hopefully, if they determine that his arm isn't going to get any stronger, and I think they've kind of determined that.
I think so.
Then maybe next year, what you do, his catcher's arm isn't great, but maybe to open up a DH spot, maybe his athleticism allows him to become an outfielder. You don't want to have two novice outfielders out there at the same time, but maybe during the offseason, you say, okay, it's not going to work for you at catcher. We've got Contreras at first. Let's try left field because we know that you want to play in the field.
Yeah, and it might be tough. I would have certainly said it would have been tough to have an outfield that sees Herrera in left and Walker in right. But now that Walker has made the strides that he's made, and obviously, I guess it's a question of if Victor Scott II is your center fielder, he can also cover up a lot of warts that the corner outfielders defensively may have. But then you ask about the future of Lars Nootbaar, and like, I think I would hesitate as a Cardinals fan to hear any of what we're saying and go, yeah, but what about? Because you could say, well, what about Nootbaar? Well, what about Contreras? Well, what about Burleson? What about Gorman? You can do that till the cows come home. We don't know what Chaim Bloom is going to do with this roster. Right. If they don't quite make the playoffs, you could see significant changes where suddenly two moves are made and you go, oh, well, that's where Herrera fits, and it'll be clear. It's not a reason not to talk about or do something if you're the Cardinals, because you don't necessarily know who's going to still be here down the road.
I want to get to a couple of chats. Damian Fowler asks, how much of a difference does a catcher mean to a pitcher now that the pitchers call their own pitches? Veteran pitchers do, but a guy like Matthew Liberatore, he's listening to the catcher. He's not thinking at all out there. And so from that perspective, from the perspective of a young pitcher, a guy like Kyle Leahy, catcher makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, and I think another aspect that we kind of hear the narrative around this shifts toward, well, is the catcher position going to matter less with the advent of the ABS challenge system? And, you know, if they go to auto umpires, they're not going to go to auto umpires. They're going to go to a challenge system. It's going to be next year. I think it's been so successful at the minor league level and then in spring that it's just bureaucracy is the only reason we don't have it now. They're going to have it, but I think we might be overblowing the impact that that's going to have on just saying, well, catcher framing doesn't matter. You only are going to get a couple of challenges per game. This isn't a situation where every single pitch. No, you're going to still, I believe, have framing as a skill. And so those things in terms of not just, you know, you say, well, now the pitchers are calling their own pitches. What does a catcher even do other than just give the ball back to him? I still think there's more to that position. And whether we agree or not, clearly the St. Louis Cardinals believe there is more to that position because they are valuing what Pages does behind the plate more so than behind the plate more so than what anybody would be doing standing next to the plate with a bat in their hands.
And Dan W. Chats, he says, unfortunately, Pages is limited at the plate. Yeah, he's not terrible. He's a catcher. And while the Dodgers have great production from their catcher position, I think if you look at Max Muncy's production this year versus Pedro Pages, they're pretty similar. Pages might be a little bit more productive than him. But my point is that most teams don't have 9 highly productive players stepping up every time. Would you love to have that? Yes. But the Cardinals right now don't have that with Pages behind the plate. Back in the day, and by the way, it kind of became a myth that Tony La Russa had told Mike Matheny, look, you just keep catching the way you're catching. You don't need to get a hit every time. And I asked Matheny that, and he said, well, he never really said it in so many words, but he kept putting my name in the lineup.
Yep. That's all you need to know, right?
So, yeah, that's how he told me. But if you have a high-quality defensive catcher that is a difference maker in your game, a Matheny, a Molina, that kind of guy, you get him in the lineup, regardless of what offense he brings to the table.
I think that's right. And I'm going to hesitate to say this next part because people are going to catch me the wrong way. I'm not comparing Pedro Pages to Yadier Molina, but I just think it's worth pointing out that Yadier Molina at the beginning of his career offensively was not, I mean, he was putting up Pages numbers, right?
Look at the World Series year, 2006.
Yeah, for multiple years, I'm just counting this up rather quickly, like 300 games worth of season before Yadier Molina had a 700 OPS in a year. Pedro Pages has played 100 games. Now, Pages is a little bit older than Yadi. I mean, Yadi was young doing that behind the plate and learning it on the fly at the plate to become a clutch hitter, a good hitter at the big league level. Pages is 26, so a couple of years older than the comparison I'm making. But just pointing out that, like, maybe, you know, Pedro Pages at the big league level has a lifetime 644 OPS. That's totally fine. Mm-hmm. But can he develop into a guy that, because he's a smart player. We have seen him with what he's done behind the plate. We know he is a smart player and a player that tries and cares and wants to improve. Can he turn into a guy with a 680 to a 700 career OPS? I wouldn't put that past him. And if he's that as your ostensibly your worst hitter in your lineup, because even though Victor's batting ninth, we consider him to be that's strategic, the reason he's down there. You can live with that. You can more than live with that. And I think that's what the Cardinals see as the present and the future for Pedro Pages.
Hey, we want you to know about the Fenton Barn Grill in Fenton on Rudder Road, just 2 minutes away from the soccer park in Fenton. They have at the Fenton Barn Grill the most dazzling, the most delicious trash wings that you will ever try. They're unbelievable. And breaking news from Fenton Barn Grill, your chance to sample those trashed wings every Monday night, 10 for $10, Mondays 5 to 9. Dine in for a limited time. Enjoy ice cold domestic bottles of beer for $2. Fenton Barn Grill running its first ever trashed wings tasting special. You will love it. So let me tell you about what you can do today at the Fenton Barn Grill. Number one, if you're out, it's not raining or anything. So if you're heading out to play a little golf, after your golf, stop by Fenton Barn Grill, have a cold one, have some wings or some of their fantastic appetizers. They're absolutely delicious. Or if you're looking for a great place for lunch today, Fenton Barn Grill has really tasty wraps and amazing salads, fantastic burgers, and at the Fenton Barn Grill, every game is going to be on TV. So the Cardinals at 5:35, the hockey and basketball tonight, you'll be able to watch that at the Fenton Barn Grill. Great music on Saturdays and Sundays at the Fenton Barn Grill. And the servers are going to treat you like you're special because you are. Stop by today on Tuesday and say hi to Casey. She's fantastic. Megan will be there. Jamie, Candy, and Peyton. The whole group is going to be on hand and will treat you really well. Whether it's to watch a game, hang out after golf, have a great business lunch, happy hour, dinner, any occasion. Stop by the Fenton Barn Grill and say hi to the 2024 Maitre d' of the Year, Chuck. You'll have a great time. It's the vibe. It's the dive with a vibe. The Fenton Barn Grill. Tell them Randy sent you. The Fenton Barn Grill is the place to be. Oh, those trash wings look fantastic.
I need the appetizers. I need them in my belly. I need it right now, but we're talking on YouTube, so I'll have to wait a little while.
We are. All right. Katie Wu mentioned in her piece over the weekend at The Athletic that the change in ballpark energy, bigger crowds, was noted by the players and the coaching staff. The Cardinals are finding their most success in almost 3 seasons, and the question is, well, whether the rebound on the field will contribute to a rebound off the field. It appears, Brendan, that that's what's happening. The crowd's definitely bigger this weekend. Obviously, this was a holiday weekend. A lot of people in from out of town. And you also have kids out of school now. Graduations have taken place. You have families that are able to get together, young people that are able to make their way to the ballpark. And we've heard it forever. When the Cardinals go to Miami or when they go to Pittsburgh or at times when they go to Cincinnati, that they have to make their own energy. That's the way it became here at home for a lot of last year and the early part of this season. It does help the players to have the crowd behind them.
Yeah, and it's so interesting that they were able to play so well when the beginning of the season when the crowds weren't necessarily there. I think especially as we get to beyond this current road trip, when it's the Royals and Dodgers coming to town, now you're into June. Hopefully we get some warmer weather to continue the positive trends here. I think that attendance thing, as much as it's not going to be what it was in the heyday, I think that us talking about it as often as it might just go away. Like if the Cardinals continue to play as well as they are, and look, they're not in first place, but they're a handful of games above 500. That's more than I think a lot of people expected coming in. If you look at the pace that they're on, that's still close to a 90-win pace probably.
And win or lose, they're a fun team to watch, right?
I would agree with that. There's only been just a select few games where you go, they just laid an egg in that game. They weren't really present for that one. You always have expected the Cardinals to potentially mount a charge, mount a rally late, and that's been the type of team that they are. I really do think by the time we get to this time next week, we're talking about a homestand where the Busch Stadium is not a talking point for how sparse the crowd is. And
I would think that a lot of people, because the Royals are performing pretty well, we'll get a lot of people from KC, and the Dodgers always draw a lot because, ever since they were sold by Frank McCourt, because they have all the stars and they are a national brand. So you'll see a lot of Royals and Dodgers blue in the stands for those series, but that doesn't matter to the Cardinals. As long as they sell the tickets, they're happy. And the Cardinals players, I think, will appreciate the energy wherever it's coming from. And this team is a team that plays with energy, and I do think they thrive off of that. And by the way, why did Nolan Arenado come here? Because of the crowds. He loved the idea of playing before 40,000 every night. That's why he forced his way to St. Louis, that and winning. Well, now he's got the crowds back a little bit, and the winning is happening. So he's he's performing at a better level. And boy, what a catch the other day. And number one, how did the umpires potentially get that messed up? Or, well, I guess it was Torey Lovullo that thought maybe he had caught the ball, in the stands.
So, and I guess it didn't matter because they ruled that the runners did get to move up. So I think that was a successful challenge.
It was a sac fly, basically, right?
Yeah, it just bothers me. I don't really understand that rule. If the guy can make the play and he catches it in the field of play and fly into the netting, into the stands the way that he did, and then throw the ball back into the field of play without really missing a beat, I was worried that's where he hurt himself, like strained a muscle trying to throw from his seat. But ridiculous to me that he wasn't rewarded because he kept the runners where they were. Right. He did that physically. The rules were maybe disagreed with that, but that was one of the best plays I've ever seen. I mean, he has made so many great plays, but that one, again, situation, it's not Game 7 of the World Series, but it's the 9th inning of a game where, you're trying to secure the series and secure the series sweep. That was just incredibly impressive to me. And Arenado has been that guy defensively all year long. I know there's been maybe a couple of lapses, but largely he has been as good as I think we've seen him defensively. Even if the numbers offensively aren't quite what we're used to seeing in the last couple of years, his defense has ticked back up. If there was a downturn at some point, I don't think that's what we're seeing anymore. He's locked in on that side of the ball.
And the more you watch this year, because his competitive zeal has never waned.
Yeah.
I think that he was probably hurt pretty bad last year to a point where he maybe shouldn't have been playing, but was forcing himself into the lineup because of his competitive zeal.
Yeah. And that's the stuff that even if it comes out later and is confirmed later, we never really understand the full extent of what a guy was dealing with. And it doesn't necessarily change in the moment where we were critical or we had certain thoughts. Then you find out, oh, he was hurt. Well, okay, easy to say now. I do think that is something that matters. And obviously if it goes underreported, because, that's just not something that Arenado is going to want out there as an excuse. It's going to impact the way that we view it. But then if you look at the lens of hindsight, you can say, well, wait a minute. Maybe that explains a lot of what we were seeing.
We get this chat from Cole Bassett's left foot. Arenado, third base Gold Glove candidate for the 25 season?
Yes.
Absolutely a candidate. You still have Matt Chapman over there in San Francisco, who's right there with Arenado as the best third baseman defensively in Major League Baseball. But I would have to say that if he's not, well, he's definitely going to be a candidate.
I think he'll be a finalist for sure.
He should absolutely be a finalist.
And I'm trying to check this on Baseball Savant right now. I'm not getting a ton of cooperation from the internet, but
internet.
Work with me here. I'm trying to make a point. He's tied right now with Cabrian Hayes for the most outs above average at the third base position. Matt Chapman is at 4 outs above average. Arenado and Hayes both have 6. The splash play has returned to his game as well. It's kind of tricky when you're evaluating defense because, well, let's look at what the metrics say. But are the metrics perfect? Well, no, you really need all of them to get a full picture. I don't think any one metric individually is going to tell the tale, but the eyes do. The eyes tell the tale for Arenado this year that tells me he's right back to that Gold Glove and really Platinum Glove level. He has been remarkable to my eye.
I agree with you 100%. And I think now we're at a point where if the Cardinals get a call about him, let's just as a hypothetical throw out there that the Red Sox, who just lost Alex Bregman for a couple of months with a quad injury, if they would call, because according to Bob Nightingale, the Cardinals and Red Sox were deep into negotiations for Arenado at the end of spring training before Bregman settled on Boston. Well, if Boston would call now and make an offer for Nolan, I don't think the Cardinals would take it. I think that they're not that they've gotten away from the runway that we talked about earlier, but I think they also think that on a parallel path, they can give young players runway and still win. And Arenado gives them the better chance to win. I haven't asked anybody about this. Just my perception. I would think that would be the case. That being said, if somebody calls up and says, okay, we'll take the Arenado contract for the next 2.5 years off your hands, I think it'd be hard for the Cardinals to say, nope, we're keeping him. But I think if the Cardinals get a call right now, just on a cursory level and say, hey, is Arenado available? I think the Cardinals probably say, nah, we're going to try to win.
Yeah, it's going to be one of those where the terms of the deal have changed because the Cardinals coming into the year would have said, okay, on paper, it makes sense to get runway for Nolan Gorman. But now that we're in the middle of this season and they're playing to a better record than people probably thought that they would, and Nolan Gorman hasn't really been a guy that you're like the performance hasn't necessarily dictated that he has to get all this playing time. And Arenado has looked the way that he has looked defensively. And I know offensively it's still coming in fits and starts, but I think it's a completely different conversation than it was in the spring, to where in the spring and through the winter, John Mozeliak's goal was to get rid of the money for ownership. That was really the primary motivator. And now it's like, okay, we're going to be getting rid of even more money. Like, none of this, we're eating a bunch of money if you're the desperate party calling us about Nolan Arenado. And what are we also getting? What kind of player are we getting in return? Where before, I think it was, you're taking half the money, you're giving us a warm body, done. Like, we just have to get Nolan to agree to it. And you didn't agree to it. I think this would be a completely different set of circumstances for the Cardinals. They would have just so much more to consider about the state of their season and where things are.
And they don't only have analytics people in the baseball side. They have analytics people on the business side too that can tell them what the net would be. Okay, are you going to draw enough people to actually make a better profit having Arenado than if you didn't have Arenado? So it comes down to top line or bottom line. Okay, you get rid of Arenado, you help out your bottom line. But if you keep Arenado, it might benefit your top line more, so that your net income is greater. And then you have to decide with your little algorithm, with your analytics, with your fancy numbers, what the best way to move forward is, not just for the rest of 2025, but for 2026. And then his salary drops dramatically in 2027. But I kind of think that if he's here on August 1st, if the Cardinals don't move him by July 31st of this year, I think he's going to end his career with the Cardinals.
I don't know about end the career. He could
play out this contract.
He could play out the contract, but I also think, like, what happens if August and September play out and the Cardinals end up winning 79 games and they just, they crater for whatever reason. And then it's right back to the drawing board in the offseason where he goes, well, I'd really like to go somewhere that I can win, because that was always the motivator for Arenado. It wasn't that he didn't like St. Louis or the fans or his teammates or any of that. And the Cardinals approached him. So, like, that's the perfect storm of, sure, yeah, go see. And then when push came to shove and he had an opportunity to take a deal, he didn't take it. He didn't go to Houston. So I think it would have to be a very select scenario that would see him out of St. Louis, but I'm leaving the door open for the possibility that materializes. I sure hope it doesn't, because I think it would involve the Cardinals finishing this season on a much lesser pace than the one that they're on from a record standpoint.
Yeah, and I would think that his comfort level, hey, it's one of the reasons that he's still here, because he really does like St. Louis.
Right.
And his wife, and he's got the young child here, and they've got access to the free zoo, all those things. So I kind of think that that might play a role in it too.
Although I don't know that the zoo prices for Arenado is probably too much of a problem. I think you can probably, even if it's a paid zoo, it's like, I got the money.
Yeah, but like, what if the whole family's in town?
Nah, it's a lot of tickets to the zoo. That's a good point.
Yeah, like if he's in San Diego, it's like $65 a pop.
Yeah, and then the taxes. I mean, there's a lot to consider.
Yeah, there is. Hey, we want you to know about DraftKings, you St. Louis sports fans, because we're deep into the season, and if you're like me, you're locked in every pitch, every pass, every play. That's why I've teamed up with DraftKings to bring you Pick Six, the all-new way to play daily fantasy sports. Okay, I've got one for you for today. Corbin Burnes of the Arizona Diamondbacks is pitching against the Pittsburgh Pirates. You know all about the Pittsburgh Pirates, don't you? His strikeouts thrown number is at 6.5. I'm going more than 6.5 strikeouts for Corbin Burnes against Pittsburgh. I'm also going more than 5.5 strikeouts for Logan Webb against the Detroit Tigers. I really like that. And I'm going to do the same game parlay here with Webb and Jack Flaherty of the Tigers, who's going against the Giants. I'm going to go him with more than 5.5 Ks. So here's what I've got. I've got Burnes more than 6.5. I've got Webb more than 5.5. And then I'm going to go Flaherty more than 5.5 strikeouts as well. I'm doing all the pitching tonight with DraftKings Pick Six, the all new way to play daily fantasy sports. Right now, if you're a new customer, you play $5 and you get $50 back in bonus picks. That's 10 extra picks to keep the action going all week long. It's easy to start, fun to follow, and gives you a whole new way to stay connected to the game. It's awesome. I love it. Everybody in this room loves it. Download the DraftKings Pick Six app today and use the code STL Hub when you sign up. Only on DraftKings Pick Six. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
All right, our audio video engineer, Matthew Rocchio, always works hard. He's eminently curious. And interesting story about a trade that Steve Kerr, when he was the general manager of the Phoenix Suns, made 18 years ago. An 18 years ago trade that's having an effect on this particular season and this year's potential NBA Finals matchup. And we'll get the timeline for you here and tell you all about how this trade set us up for what is going to happen over the course of the next couple of weeks. Tonight, you've got the Pacers trying to eliminate the Knicks at home. Or no, that one's 2-1. You've got the Pacers trying to take a 3-1 lead at home. And then tomorrow, after Indiana's win last night, Oklahoma City beat Minnesota. Now OKC can go back and win because they are up 3-1. All right, Matthew, if you can give us a timeline for how a trade by Steve Kerr 18 years ago changed what basketball is in 2025. What happened here?
Yes, so I'm going to throw this up for everybody, make it readable so that we can see this and kind of go chapter and verse style through everything that happened that led us to a potential finals matchup between the Thunder and the Pacers. So we have to rewind all the way back to July 11th, 2007. Sam Presti is 1 month and 4 days into his job as the GM of the Seattle Supersonics. Obviously, they would eventually become the Oklahoma City Thunder, but this is when they're the Supersonics. He trades Rashard Lewis for a second-round pick and a trade exception. Then, a few days later, working with Suns GM Steve Kerr, very different job, very different team than he's had for the last decade that everyone knows him as, he trades big man Kurt Thomas to the Sonics in a salary dump, and it costs him 2 first-rounders and a second-round pick. Then, the next year, they use one of those first-round pick to draft Serge Ibaka as the Sonics. He eventually obviously would go on to have a very good career for the Thunder. Well, let's fast forward 8 years. Serge Ibaka, a very good career for the Thunder, a finals appearance, but unfortunately they got a reset here. And so what are they going to do? They bring in Magic guard Victor Oladipo, former second overall pick in the draft. He's the main piece with Serge Ibaka. They also bring in Ersan Ilyasova and the draft rights to recently selected center Domantas Sabonis to fill out the deal. 1 year later, the Pacers pull off a Paul George trade with a desperate Pacers team. They were going to lose him for absolutely nothing. So they had to get something for Paul George. What do they get? They get Victor Oladipo just a year later and Domantas Sabonis for Paul George. Well, then 2 years later, unfortunately, the Thunder, they didn't win, so they got to reset again. That's Sam Presti's bag is resetting. So after they failed to win it all, they send Paul George to the Clippers in their own home run swing for the Clippers, and they acquire Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Danilo Gallinari, 5 first-round picks, and 2 pick swaps. I won't go through what all those picks have led to, but I'm going to fast forward. We're actually going to switch over to Indiana.
Bless you.
To February 8th, 2022, when dealing with a logjam with Miles Turner at center, the Pacers packaged Domantas Sabonis with 2 players and a second rounder for a 3-player package of Buddy Hield, Tristan Thompson, and Kings guard Tyrese Halliburton. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how a trade of Rashard Lewis in 2007 led us potentially to Tyrese Halliburton versus Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in the NBA Finals 18 years later.
That's amazing. I think it's a whole lot simpler if we just do DiVincenzo and Randall against Cat.
Yeah, that was really recent.
Yeah, that one's not as fun. I don't get to have as much fun with that one, Randy. Come on.
The timeline is awesome. No, it's great. So Samuel Howe, this is now a podcast with slides. Yeah, we like that.
I don't know where you've been, Samuel Howe. We've been using graphics and stuff since day one. It's an audio visual medium. I'm not going to not use half of the medium.
That's great.
What do you want from me?
Yeah. Cole Bassett's left foot. This was like an episode of Tracing Your Roots.
I wish I was half as good as that show is, because that show absolutely kills.
Ben and Becca Lee Munson. Could have been an email.
I like that
I'm
one.
sorry I provided you with information. That's my fault.
This is a lot of words.
This
this
is the kind of thing that I love. I love a timeline. I think we worked it out a few years ago that Scott Stevens turned into Jordan Binnington.
Yes,
Right?
I love that. Like I think there's other things that people tweet about where they talk about trade trees and how eventually like a trade tree dies because finally the last piece of it finishes their career, doesn't get traded, everything finishes out, it's done. And if you don't like that, and then alternate history stuff, like if this doesn't happen, the NFL's different.
What's the best one, right? The best one is if Jimmy Johnson is allowed to sign Drew Brees.
Oh, that's a fantastic.
Or no, Nick Saban. I'm sorry. Nick
Saban
is allowed to sign Drew Brees in Miami. Saban wins in Miami. The Saints never win with Sean Payton there. Saban never goes to Alabama, and Drew Brees becomes a star with the Dolphins. They win a few Super Bowls.
I have another level for you.
What?
The New Orleans Saints aren't the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah, right.
If they don't
San Antonio, right?
If they don't get everything that happens there, it's San Antonio, it's Oklahoma City. The Saints aren't in New Orleans if Drew Brees isn't there potentially. So like the things you can create off that. Oh, I love that one. You also have other crazy ones with like injuries. I mean, what happens if Rodney Harrison's not a cheap SOB?
Yep.
You can actually get like 9 permutations in a lot of people's careers off the Rodney Harrison question.
Oh man, think about Kurt Warner. How we never would have seen or heard of Kurt Warner.
And that was all in there. I mean, that all played out. He did those things, but absolutely needed that kind of last chance, someone to take a chance on him and for an opportunity to come up. You talk about parallel universes. That very well could have gone a different way where he never does get a shot.
Smooth Productions asks, going back to the fans at the stadium, have opposing players said anything about the fans or lack thereof at Busch Stadium this season? I know that last year the Padres broadcasters did. I don't recall any opposing players saying anything about how different it was or is at Busch Stadium. But it used to be that they could count on 40,000 every night. And that's one of the reasons, back in my day, back in late 90s when Walt was in charge, Peter Gammons he regularly talked about how the Cardinals had $100 million group of players that they were paying $80 million for because this was such a destination because of Mark McGwire calling it baseball heaven. And he brings all these fans into the stands and allowed the Cardinals to make a lot of money and build what became the dynasty that we enjoyed for 15 years from 2000 to 2015. And the Cardinals got a lot of players to come here because the fans were so enthusiastic on a regular basis. I remember specifically when Larry Walker got traded here and he had a no trade. He gave up his no trade to come here. And it was, he said, because I want to win and I want to play before a sold out crowd every night.
Yeah. And that was, something the Cardinals sustained and maintained for quite a long time. And obviously there's since been the downturn and I still think there's the realm in which you get that back, but you do have to find sort of the pillars, right? You mentioned Mark McGwire and then obviously there's Albert and Yachty. Like you got to kind of maybe find those pillars to maintain that consistency over eras, but it's not to say that it couldn't come again.
And I think it stopped when Albert literally said no hometown discount. And then he went and took more cash. Yeah, obviously his net would have been greater in St. Louis, as he'll tell you, but he took a greater contract in Anaheim than he would have gotten here in St. Louis. But man, Roland turned down a $140 million deal in Philly to sign a $90 million deal here. McGwire left a $30 million contract in his desk, but before that, he could have gone into free agency and signed for $10 million a year. He signed a 4-year deal for 28 here. Darryl Kyle signed an extension here for a lot less money than he could have gotten. Same with Edmonds. Edmonds was headed into free agency after that 2000 season, but by the end of April, he had signed an extension to stay here.
Yeah.
Players just loved playing here, and it made a difference. Now, I do think, not just for the Cardinals, but for everybody, the hometown discount has gone out the window. I mean, LA is a great place, but the Dodgers aren't giving anybody or aren't getting any hometown discounts from anybody.
Yeah, I think they're pretty much paying for what they're getting in a lot of cases. They're just willing to pay a lot of different players a lot of money. And the deferrals, I think, is part of it, though. Like the Dodgers do use that deferral concept more than most teams.
Mhm.
And is there part of it that guys are a little more willing to defer? As long as I get my money eventually, I can defer and be a part of this. I think that might be a small part of it, but the Dodgers are maybe a unique set of circumstances, and they continue to do things in ways that other teams either can't or won't do.
Right. And the deferrals are unbelievable, right? With what they're giving to Ohtani. But Nolan Arenado has a significant amount of interest-free deferrals in his contract here in St. Louis. Hey, we want you to know what's going on with our friends at Hot Shots, because coming up next Sunday is the big party over at Hot Shot Sports Bar and Grill in St. Charles. It's a St. Charles location 35th anniversary bash celebrating, guess what, 35 years of Hot Shots. It's happening Saturday, June 1st at the original Hot Shots in St. Charles, Mo. And it's the biggest party ever. All-day celebration with food, drinks, music, and special guests. The Clydesdales are going to be there. Rizzuto and Rafe from the Riz show on 105.7 The Point are going to be there. There's a huge parking lot party from noon to 6 with darts tournament. You're going to have a bags tournament. You're going to have a taco eating contest. It's going to be really cool, and it's going to be fun. The Smirnoff Dart Tournament starts at noon, $10 to enter. The Una Vida Patio Bags Tournament starts at 2 o'clock, a $10 buy-in. And then the Taco Eating Contest, hosted by Riz, is at 4 p.m., with the grand prize being tacos for a year. They're going to have hourly customer prize giveaways all day long, and you'll have all kinds of samples that you'll be able to take advantage of as well. It's this coming Saturday, June 1st, over at Hot Shots in St. Charles. And all you need to do is go to hotshotsnet.com for full details. Don't miss this blowout celebration. Hot Shots turns 35, and you're invited. You were tweeting about the NFL flag football players against the regular flag football players. Darrell Doucette, Hoosh, I think is his nickname, and his fellow USA national flag football teammates aren't backing down to their big name supposed replacements in flag football. What do you think?
I think I want to see the game. Get your NFL guys that you think can be your flag football USA roster. Let them, because there is a team USA already for flag football. Let them play. And, may the best team win. And I don't think it's just a guarantee that the NFL guys are going to blow them out, because I think there might be intricacies to the flag aspect of this sport that are different. Now, maybe I'm overselling that. Maybe because like I said, when we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, the players from the NFL rosters that I think are most prominently going to do well in this, you have a good quarterback, obviously, and you want a guy with some elusiveness, but then it's wide receivers and cornerbacks, I think, are really all we're talking about, because there's no tackling involved. So you need those hand skills and that quick twitch. And so maybe the cornerbacks who are, elite at knocking the football away from their opponent and everything that they can do with their hands. But is there more physicality where you can't really hand check in flag football the way you can in the NFL? That could still come into play. But maybe like grabbing a flag will just be second nature for these guys. But I don't know. I'd like to see it.
I think that's the biggest thing. I don't believe, and I may be incorrect about this because I have not watched Darrell Doucette III and his fellow USA national flag football
teammates. You got to see him.
I wonder if they have somebody that can keep up with Tyreek Hill. They can run with Tyreek Hill or run with Lamar Jackson. I wonder if they have those players. And obviously, having to play both sides of the ball will play a role here. That's a factor. But I can't imagine that from a physical standpoint, from a speed standpoint, that these guys will be able to hang with the speed that NFL players have.
Yeah, I think that's – and like the wide receivers, the one guy that might have a shot, like I want to see this Doucette. I want to see what he's able to do potentially if he was matched up against some NFL guys. Because the wide receivers catch the ball. That's not a lot changes. So I feel like the NFL wide receivers are going to certainly be better than whatever the flag football wide receivers are. But I want to know the cornerbacks and certainly the quarterback position. What does that end up looking like? I'm trying to find some highlights of some Team USA stuff. But this Doucette guy, first of all, he has a very unique throwing motion. He doesn't look like he's serious at all. But I've seen some highlights of him being incredibly shifty in the way that he's able to move around. And so I don't know. I just don't want to count these guys out because it would feel pretty bad to not even get the opportunity and then have your job taken from you. That would be a bummer to me.
Yeah,
I wouldn't really, I could understand being frustrated by that, but this guy's gonna be like 38 years old, I think, by the time that the Olympics comes around. And so as long as he gets a chance to try out, then I'll let the chips fall where they may. But I don't know. I also could see the side of it where it's a global game if the NFL can make it a global game, and the NFL is putting its weight behind this and allowing it to happen. Yeah, you're probably going to see a push for the NFL players so that you can globalize the sport in that way.
I wonder if when you rush the passer, and we can watch and we can figure it out, do you have to do one?
You see this guy?
2 Mississippi, 3
Look at
Mississippi?
this guy. Watch. You got to get this. You got to get this blown up a little bit.
You need this hip. You need to see the hip drop.
Oh, he is shifty.
Oh.
Look at that.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of sits on his seat and it's about grab his flag. He doesn't have to worry about what Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen have to worry about, which is getting leveled by a 280-pound linebacker.
Uh-huh.
You don't have to worry about that if you're Hoosh Doucette. And so he's got some willingness to do some things that maybe those other quarterbacks can't do when they hear the footsteps.
The pure anger right here, this little hip drop move right there.
Oop.
The pure anger that every football fan showed when that was first tweeted out. Like, I'm sorry, I don't care if it's flag. If you do a little hip drop like that, like a little butt drop like that in the middle of a football game, I will punch you. Like everyone was,
Fine. It'll be a flag.
Was very,
It'll be a
very
flag.
angry.
Penalty. I'm just saying. I hope this guy keeps in great shape. I know he's going to be
39 officially
39
when the Olympics are
played, but I hope he keeps in great shape and keeps this elusiveness to at least have a fighting chance. I don't know about any of the other ones, but I'm Team Hoosh. I'm on Hoosh's side. I want to see what he can do, and I want him to play against a team of the NFL cornerbacks and pass rushers that are going to try to take these guys as jobs in the 2028 LA Olympics.
The one thing I wonder about is the ability of NFL players to be able to go and get the flag, but
because it's not a skill that they necessarily practice, right? Doing it at the Pro Bowl is not the same thing. There's going to be NFL players that absolutely are going to be far and away the best options for the Team USA. I don't know that it's just going to be NFL guys. I think some of these flag football guys, if they do a fair tryout, which it sounds like they're going to do, you never know. I want to see what these other guys have in them. And
we had a chat in here from Mason Windu asking if Lamar or Tyreek would want to play. Tyreek Hill has already said he wants to
Did he
play.
say? Yeah.
Yeah. He wants to be a part of it. I don't think that Lamar is as sold on the idea. With the owners voting for it, he was asked about it, and he said, I doubt it. I'm a professional NFL player, so I'm just going to stay over here and let those guys have fun. You're gonna hear more of that than you expect as well. This is not going to be every NFL player is going to want to do it. And I've heard Tyreek Hill say he wanted to be traded, and then the next day say just kidding. So we'll see. I don't know if it's just going to be all these NFL guys the way people assume.
And people are talking about, the injury aspect of this. My thing is when you hear Justin Jefferson talk, and we played that audio last week on the show, it's clear they have the same mentality that I think basketball players have about it. And it wasn't Olympics, but I believe it was a FIBA scrimmage when Paul George snapped his ankle in half. And the region, and one of the reasons actually people especially complain about that is that the stanchions are different in international basketball than they are in American basketball. And that's where he put his foot, was the stanchion.
Okay.
And we just saw the NBA players all went out for gold with a lot of effort. And so I think you saw a horrible injury in international play to a star player that potentially cost his team a championship run. And still the majority of the sport said, we want to go get an Olympic gold. And so I don't think the injury factor is going to be as much of a deterrent for most players as people think.
I think it matters if you need a couple of guys to take the lead and be like, I'm in, I'm doing it. And then there's going to be that FOMO. Like nobody else is going to want to miss out. They can sit there and make the reasons and the excuses for why not to do it. Oh, injuries. Oh, everything. But if enough of those prominent guys are like, I'm doing it, I'm going to try out for the quarterback position. And then it's like, okay, everybody's going to come with him.
And the NFL has their official ambassadors, of which Justin Jefferson is one. He said he's dreamed of winning a gold medal ever since he was a little kid. So I can definitely see him and that group of ambassadors being a part of it. Now, if I guess we have to assume that if the NFL owners are going to vote for this, there was already a deal made with USA Football that these guys are going to be on the team. They would not embarrass NFL players by having them go to a tryout and get beat out by who should do set.
I don't think the whole team will be stocked with flag football guys. I don't think the whole team will be stocked with NFL. I think it will be kind of a rigged process a little bit, but I would like to believe that at least a couple of these flag football guys are going to be part of it to say, hey, this is the guy that you've not seen before. And when he makes a great highlight in it, they say, well, gosh, I'm an 8-year-old kid. I want to play flag football. It's all about growing the sport. And so I think they will do it very strategically. I don't know that the tryout is going to just be best man wins, but there's going to be some of those flag football guys that I think are still prominently displayed when this happens.
And if you are the NFL, you better win, right? If it's rigged like it is with basketball, like where all of your guys are the best NBA players, they just name players. If you're the NFL and you're going to vote for these players to play in the Olympics and you're going to send them to LA to play flag football, they better win. Because if they don't, it's an embarrassment to the NFL.
Yeah, because I don't know quite. I'm sure there are a lot of guys with other heritages and other nationalities, whether they're from those countries or not. We talked about, guys like Lars Nootbaar, Tommy Edman having the heritage to be able to participate and represent other countries in the World Baseball Classic. There will be other, nationalities represented from the NFL, but you're gonna need the speedsters to be able to win in flag football, and so we'll see the way that's going to break down. We've got a long way to go before it happens, but I'll be watching. I mean, I'm excited to see what it ends up playing out to be.
Oh yeah, I would rather watch that than breakdancing. Breakdancing is still in the Olympics, by the way.
What?
They kept it after all that, huh?
Uh-huh.
I thought it was just the special one that Paris got to choose.
No, I think it was very popular.
No way.
It kind of.
I mean, it would make sense to have it in LA. Yeah, LA's a pretty big
dance background.
Well, just for the beginning.
I used to be a really good breakdancer.
I believe it. I don't deny anything NFL players can do. Apropos to this conversation,
who was that defensive tackle that jumped out of the water?
Jerron Gilbert would go in the second round, I believe, to the Bears and would not do crap in the NFL.
No,
but man could jump out of a fucking pool at, I want to say 6'2", 295.
Pretty impressive.
Yeah, I know. Cool. The fact that I pulled that name, pretty solid.
Yeah, I'm not even going to look it up.
And then who was the other one that I think the Chiefs, a giant defensive tackle that the Chiefs drafted? I'm not sure. Maybe not.
Noddy?
No,
he was freakishly large.
Yeah, if I think of it, I'll think of it, but I don't know. But yeah,
he jumped out of a pool.
Did crazy stuff.
And you got me right in the pocket on Jerron Gilbert. Then you drove me right away. Cole Bassett's left foot. Is there female flag football in the Olympics? Yes, and I believe we're probably only 2 or 3 years away from it being an NCAA sport. At like low levels or that's already a club sport.
I could see that.
It's being picked up by high schools. It's not going to be long before it begins to get bigger and bigger. And I'm all for it. I think it's fantastic. I hope that the relevance of flag football actually, I think, is great for tackle football because I think
for sure.
I think what this should create though is
a gateway drug. Oh, sorry.
What I hope the turn to flag football is that we create leagues where kids can play non-tackle up until like 13 or 14, but we find out a way at age 11 or 12 to start. Maybe it's putting just like heavy blocking pads in their hands. You start getting the lineman aspects taught, but like the skills. We start teaching a 12-year-old what a kick step is, how to hand fight as an offensive lineman. So you go from it being only a skill position game to being an actual path towards learning how to play tackle football at an age where the safety factor becomes less of a risk. And I just hope that the prevalence of flag football being accepted on both ends gets us to, I've always referred to it as a skills league where it's not tackle football, it's not flag football, but we are able to get 7-on-7, close to 11-on-11 so that we can actually teach defensive linemen. Because I also think you play flag your entire life and then you get moved to offensive line. You're still doing the little things like keeping your head down and that are going to lead to concussions and head issues.
Yeah.
So get them away from that.
Yeah. I like that you mentioned too that having it be potentially an NCAA, sanctioned or whatever the phraseology would be sport. My sister has been graduated from high school for a number of years, but she played a year of flag football in Florida. They had a high school for girls flag football thing. So like that's a thing that's definitely been gaining in prominence for sure.
Don Terry Poe was the defensive.
I was wondering if Poe was who you were talking about, but I didn't know what the hook was of what you were talking about. If he had jumped out of a pool or he just was crazy athletic.
He did crazy athletic. He did something like that.
That's nuts. Somebody did. Let's Turn 2 pointed out. Now this isn't what you were talking about, but Kalen Saunders, whose brother is a dancer for Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
Kalen Saunders also is a freak athlete who does like backflips and stuff like
Parkway
that.
Central.
Parkway Central, exactly.
So how about that? So you learn something new every day.
There we go.
So that's pretty cool that
We're
we
learning
had
a lot today.
A dancer for Taylor Swift. How about J-Lo last night? Did you see that? J-Lo.
What happened?
J-Lo
No,
locking lips with one
not.
of her dancers on the American Music Awards.
I must have missed it.
Yeah. Live TV.
You know what? Good for her being on a music thing.
Oh, she's unbelievable.
Why are you smiling like that, Rock?
On the music thing is.
My favorite thing. Never mind. I won't go there. No need to take shots at J-Lo. She's talented.
Yeah, I thought you were trying to be mean.
I was
about
going
your
to be.
face told me you
I
were
was going to be.
Oh, go ahead. Do it.
Like, I mean, do you think she made a deal with somebody a long time ago that she will always be perpetually beautiful no matter how old she is, but she'll never be recognized as being a good singer?
Yeah, probably. I mean, because she didn't do a Super Bowl halftime because she's a good singer, did she?
No. And I think like a lot of people, it's like she's great at a lot of things, but she's still a little perturbed that isn't one of the things that made
People
her.
give her credit for
yes.
it? Yeah.
People don't give her, it made her famous, obviously,
She's
but
got
people
good
don't give
genes.
her credit for being a great singer.
No.
And I think she's like, that's the one thing I want to be known for.
Yeah.
And it's not.
And by the way,
Super talented.
she does have good genes, but she's also genetically gifted.
Randall.
I'm
Randall.
Trying to
What?
put that together when plum plus 1 equals 2. Okay. I think I know what he meant. I'm going to write that down.
Hey, the 2025 STL Sports Show is going to take place at the Doubletree Hotel in Chesterfield, Friday, May 30th through Sunday, June 1st. That's this coming weekend. And there's going to be autograph signings from stars like Grant Fuhr, Ryan O'Reilly, Roman Berkey, Armand Membu of the Jets, and many more. Tons of vendors with trading cards and memorabilia. Just go to stlsportshow.com to find out the schedule and all of the information. VIP packages and photo ops are available for most athletes. And right now, you can use the code SHOW15. That's SHOW, SHOW15, and you can get 15% off tickets to Fuhr, O'Reilly, and Berkey. It's the 2025 STL Sports Show, Friday, May 30th through Sunday, June 1st at the Doubletree Hotel in Chesterfield at stlsportsshow.com. Got to check something out here. Going to check something out on the phone, kids.
Check it.
Do you
Check
mind?
it. Yeah, what do you want to talk about,
so-
Rock?
So,
He's going to check something out.
I'm checking this out. Hold on a second.
How excited
Pause,
are you?
pause.
How
Okay,
excited are
so
you?
You didn't even get it out. You didn't even get your question out.
Here's my question. Sunday is indeed June 1st.
Okay, it is June
I
1st.
thought
That's
I
it.
got this right.
Okay,
Okay, but we
What's
got to
wrong?
figure this out.
okay.
My Hot Shots copy says Saturday, June 1st. The party at Hot Shots, we have to find out whether it's Saturday or Sunday. Check their website.
It's a great question.
HotShotsNet.com.
I'll go there.
We need to find out.
I'm going to go to hotshotsnet.com.
HotShotsNet.com. Yes.
June 1st. It's Sunday, June 1st.
Sunday. Okay, so it's officially Sunday.
I think we had it. Hopefully, we've had it right on the graphic. At least their graphic.
So Sunday is the day for the Hot Shots. It's not. So our copy is wrong here. So it's Sunday, June 1st. So now you know via podcast.
It's all we've always
The graphic is right.
up
Yeah.
until I feel like this typo is recent because we've been running this graphic the whole run.
Right.
I feel like somebody got a little extemporaneous with the S.
Luckily, the piece of paper that is in Randy's hand is wrong, but nobody sees that except Randy. So if he misspoke, it's because of the paper,
This is
not
why
because of
I
him.
double checked it.
Yep,
It's because
yep.
I did read it that way earlier. It's the first time I've read it that way, so that you know officially. So now you know, and that's why I say for more details, go to hotshotsnet.com.
And they have those details. I just saw them.
And this is the STL Sports Show that you want to go to this weekend as well. We
All
got a lot of
weekend
stuff
How about a
going
little
on.
day? You go out to St. Charles, start at the STL Sports Show. get yourself a couple autographs,
Yeah.
and then you just beeline right over to St. Charles and hit up our good
Shots
friends
party.
right there at Hot Shots.
Yep.
I mean, come on. You need more things signed.
Does Mellberg get fired this week?
Mellberg.
One shot on goal.
He's not getting fired today.
He's not?
No, I don't think they have a tendency to announce things between 9:30 and 10:18 a.m. It is 11:19, and we have a presser with Olof Mellberg.
Oh, the soccer coach. Yeah.
I will come on camera and slap you.
He said Mellberg, and I was like racking my brain, and they're like, "No, he's not fired. No, he's not."
It's fine. It's fine. Brenden doesn't live in St. Louis. So it's fine that he doesn't understand.
I'm sorry, where do I live? What about that Hot Shots party? Where's that taking place? What happened?
So,
damn it.
So here's my thing with
that was well done.
two things, actually. Number one,
I think he's going to get one more game.
There should never be a game in any sport where you only get one shot on goal. Should never happen, ever. Soccer, I don't know soccer, but I can tell you this. There shouldn't be a game where you're only getting one shot on goal.
Those still 90-minute games?
Yeah.
Still regulation?
Yeah.
Okay.
Secondly, and maybe not less important, there should not be a scenario in which you are they weren't uncompetitive, were they, Matthew? They had an opportunity
This past week?
Against Colorado.
It was this is so stupid, but like it's just it was the best second half since the first game of the season.
There you go. So they played reasonably well.
Yeah,
You
pretty much.
cannot be losing to Kroenke's teams. St. Louis City SC, you cannot be losing to the Colorado Rapids.
You're going to get Randy upset.
Yeah, you're getting me upset.
And the thing is they outplayed the Rapids at the very beginning of the season, so I don't even know how much this means. They still only have 2 wins, one of them over the worst team in the season of the
Galaxy?
Of the league in the Galaxy. That's the only team. They beat them 3-0.
The Galaxy are bad, huh?
That wasn't a
The
bad
worst,
second
yeah.
half, I guess. Like, it was a legitimately solid second half, but there are plenty of questions. The aspect that I talked about last Monday of, is Olof Mellberg putting the players in the best position to succeed? He solved that a little bit this weekend. But I think there's still understandable questions as to why certain forwards/wingers are playing and others are not. And I think those are fair questions to be asked right now. We'll hopefully be talking to Olof about that around 12:15.
Okay, and one other, let's go back to our, again, we'll mention DeMarco Farr in this segment, because DeMarco used to say that sometimes things are bad, but there's a lot of reasons for them being bad.
It's good.
And the line that he used, an old Don James line, is, son, sometimes you got to shoot a hostage. And that might be where they are with SC. Things going as badly as they are, whether it's Mellberg or an assistant coach or an important player, sometimes you got to shoot a hostage just to get everybody's attention.
Okay, fair. At the same time, I've seen a lot of movies. I think the point is that you don't ever have to.
You try
shoot
to
a
avoid
hostage.
that,
You try to
I think.
avoid shooting the hostage, Randy.
But that's how you get people's attention, though.
That's true. And my thing is also, you also get the cliche of you can't fire the players, so you fire the coach.
Yeah.
That's why I just keep going down to I want to see what happens when he actually has Edward Leuven and Thomas Totland back into the lineup.
Yeah.
You'll be able to see Thomas Totland on Sunday as one of the guest bartenders at the Hot Shots party. I don't know if we'll see Thomas Totland on Saturday afternoon when they face off against the San Jose Earthquakes. I hope so, because this team is simply a different team. Even in a Mellberg system and scheme that people might not like, they are a better team and they are a different team when they have Totland at right wing back and Leuven in the midfield.
Absolutely.
Who's the soccer player that is like the Taylor Motter, where people are like, oh, we got to DFA this guy? Do they DFA in soccer? Because you said you can't fire the players, but what do you do?
You can cut guys too. You got to pay them, but it's a very convoluted system.
If I were the angry soccer fan, I would just want to be like, DFA so and so. I just don't know who to DFA.
They are 100% dealing with DFA this guy, DFA this guy, DFA this guy. My tact, instead of saying, well, do you want to release him or DFA him? My tact is more pointing out that these guys are playing because everyone above them is injured. And at this point, fans are so disillusioned with Mellberg. Did they just fire him? Are you like?
I'm showing him a picture of me with Taylor
They
Motter.
did just. Oh, that was like I didn't recognize him without the baseball hat on.
Yeah.
Sorry, you were showing him that. But so now fans have gotten to the point where they are confident that Olof Mellberg is simply, and the coaching staff is making the wrong decision between player A and player B.
Right.
Which one is better? And despite seeing them in training every day, fans are now confident that Olof is making the wrong call between bench player A and bench player D to be starting games. And I think that is
You're not confident that they're right?
No, I'm not confident the fans are right. No.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily confident Olaf's right, but like if I have to lean with somebody's opinion on this one, I know where I'm going. I'm going with the guy who played the position we're talking about him scrutinizing at the highest level.
Yeah. By the way, I emailed you that picture if you want to put it up for people.
Oh.
It kind of looks like I'm standing with, it wouldn't have been because he's dead, but Ronnie Van Zant, the lead singer for Leonard Skinner, looks like I'm standing with him at an event.
Also, not for nothing. This is just a personal.
Not for nothing. That's a New York line.
This is
not for nothing, but.
Yeah, I used to say quarter like a Bostoner. I got some New England in me apparently.
Huh?
Something about fans that really bothers me is that people now think Olof sucks because he looks unprofessional because he wears shorts and hoodies and sandals and stuff like that. And I just think that's just.
Isn't that what Jeff Fisher did?
We are just wasting our time.
Whoa, now it's a
what
really
we're
big
actually
picture.
complaining about.
There we go.
Is, I don't like that he
No, the
wears-
crown is literally yours. The crown is on Randy's
I'm
head.
getting rid of it.
There we go. Yeah, that's me and Taylor Motter.
It's a nice jacket he's got
That's a
there.
beautiful jacket, isn't it? It was at a casino night. And he's got a playing card jacket on.
And when you sent that to me and Brooke, we did not know who it was.
Yeah, I
No.
missed it too. I said he wasn't wearing a hat.
I love the guy.
So that's why.
What a nice
I love
guy.
the way that Olaf dresses. By the way, I love the way that Taylor Motter dresses. This style, that jacket, that hair, Olaf's the same way. If I was cut from a gargoyle,
Mhm.
but actually that makes it seem like he'd be ugly. If I was cut from a marble-esque statue like Olaf was, I would also keep it simple. I'd let the beard and the chin below it do the talking.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what he does.
So Fisher tried to show his toughness by wearing shorts every day until we got to December. So for the whole season until we got to December 1st, obviously training camp, but then September, October, November when it got a little bit colder. And then in December, he would finally switch to longer pants. Didn't show me an awful lot and didn't win because of it either. So there you got that. Speaking of football, your St. Louis Battlehawks kept on rolling. They've won their fifth in a row, 39-13 over the San Antonio Brahmas on Friday night over at the Dome. Max Duggan played well. He had 130 yards passing and a touchdown, 12 of 17 in just the first half. Backup Brandon Silvers handled the second half, had 100 yards and a touchdown. He was 7 of 10 and extended a 21-10 lead to the final of 39-13. The Battlehawks will be the home team for the XFL championship. There's an XFL and a UF.
Oh, the
USFL
conferences. Yeah,
conference
basically.
championship,
Okay.
yeah. And then the overall UFL championship is the week after. But June 8th is the next home game. Tickets available at uflbattlehawks.com. The Battlehawks are at DC this coming weekend. DC fell to Houston on Saturday.
That
or
was
Sunday.
that was a scandal.
It
I
was
mean-
unbelievable. And by the way, yeah, the way that all the energy expended by Washington and trying to rally to win that game, and then they didn't convert on the 2-point conversion with no time on the clock, or virtually no time on the clock. Yeah, it was quite a tilt.
B-Shape did great. We went from Cardinals to NBA to NFL
I was even in
adjacent.
flag football. I
and
was
then,
in.
And then as soon as we just
No, I'm in
spun
on
away
Battlehawks.
from the Big Four sports, the Big Four leagues, we're he's just drowning.
No, the Battlehawks. I love Max Duggan, and I think that they're going to pack the dome when it comes to these playoff
Maybe
games.
40,000?
That's-
We
I
need
mean, it's-
40,000 on June 8th, kids.
I had a
Fine.
great time when I went to Battlehawks games.
It's
I mean,
great.
I haven't been lately, but I love it.
Yeah, they're fun. And I was there on Friday night. It was a good time. And you can get tickets at uflbattlehawks.com. Support your home team. in these playoffs because they are fun. They try hard. Competitive level, Brendan, it's not the NFL, but it's those guys that are all a notch below the NFL. It's not like you have some NFL players and some non-NFL players. It's kind of like the SEC, I guess. Maybe SEC light.
So it just means more.
Yeah.
Get on down to the Battle Dome.
Yeah. There are NFL players in the SEC. Okay. The best receiver from Alabama, probably, or Georgia.
Oh, definitely right now.
Yeah.
That Alabama
the best
kid.
receiver on the Battlehawks.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's probably fair. They'd be the best receiver on some NFL teams, possibly.
Yeah, right.
But
so anyway, it because of the level, the physical abilities of all of the players in the league, the competitive level is generally pretty fun. And the games coming up the next 2 weeks, well, this next game coming up at DC might be the worst football game you'll ever see because neither team is going to play their players or show the other team anything that they want to do.
Oh, right, because they're going to play again when it counts
next week.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the bad part. Unfortunately, like that's going to suck. But my favorite part about this league is because it's not the elite level of the NFL, the offenses just doesn't dominate. And there's plenty of, you can call them mistakes. I'll refer to it as defenders making plays, where defenders are actually able to make plays in this league because the quarterbacks aren't at this like elite level where they're seeing passing routes as like colors and they taste blitz calls and their eyes shine yellow when somebody crosses across the middle and they're magical and superhuman. We actually have like human beings playing quarterback, and so it feels like there's still an actual chess match going on beyond just can you cut up zone coverage? All right, cool, then we're screwed.
Okay, yeah. Got it.
That's essentially what the NFL is now. It's like, do we have cornerbacks that can run with a guy man? Well, no, they have a 6'4" guy who runs a 4.40. Okay, can we cover them in cover 2 over the top or cover 3? No, their quarterback can beat zone. We got to score 45 points. Yep. This is the Buffalo Bills problem. I just stumbled into everything that Buffalo fans have been crying about for the last 4 years.
All right. By the way, Battlehawks fans, you need to stay tuned to Sports Hub STL because Battlehawks Hub Weekly is available right here on this YouTube page with Luke Slaybaugh and Judy Strotter every single week. And you can check out the new Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken Battlehawks box. Score up to 30% off Battlehawks tickets. Plus, get 4 of their famous breast strips and a side of potato wedges for just $8.99. I had them, and they're delicious. And they're only at Lee's, famous for chicken. And the Battlehawks, again, will play this weekend at DC. And then Sunday, June 8th, 5 p.m., the playoff game against the DC Defenders. Okay, one other unfortunate thing that I want to bring up to you guys. And this might just be a me thing. Okay. But last night, I'm watching Anthony Edwards take only 2 shots in the first half, wind up with 13 shots for the game and have, 16 points. And you know what I kept thinking of? And I know this is just stupid, but I kept thinking of Jonte Porter.
Randy, no.
Why? Jonte Porter, the over-under for Anthony Edwards last night was 28.5.
It was a game plan thing where they took away him and Julius Randle, forced the ball into other people's hands.
Well, they were doing that in game 3 too.
Yeah, but the difference is that he
was aggressive.
Yes, that's the biggest difference. But if you look at his just drive count, his drive count was only like 6 or 7 total in game 1 and 2. His drive count is 7 total in the first quarter of game 3 and 19 through the full game. And then he's back to not driving. I don't think that's because he's less aggressive. I think it's because from game 3 to 4, we saw Oklahoma City shift bodies so that he couldn't get into the paint as much.
When any player, well, maybe not any player, but last night specifically for him to be as great as he was in game 3 and then as bad as he was last night, unfortunately, what has happened with legalized gambling and Jonte Porter has led to suspicion.
Puts in the brain.
Yeah, it puts in the brain.
Fair.
I don't think anybody's Jonte Portering in the Western Conference Finals, though.
You never know, though, because here's the thing: it'd be a great movie. Like, what kind of trouble is the guy in?
Well, that's my thing. I guess it would be one thing if this is a guy who hadn't signed a big contract out of the gate as the first overall pick,
Mhm.
and who wasn't because of his All-NBA selections and the fact that he's probably going to get close to winning an MVP. His Supermax will get bumped up to the highest tier because that's how the NBA contracts work, which is you have to unlock the highest tiers of the Supermax by getting named to all NBA teams and things like that. And so he will unlock that ultra super tier. So we're talking about him going from making 270 to, I think it'll be 312. So a $312 million deal is on the table for him unless he tears both knees and goes full Grant Hill. So I just don't know if we're also talking about a guy who would already be in that kind of financial issue.
There's glory for him.
Where he could make more money throwing the Western Conference Finals than simply winning the Western Conference Finals and going
you know how organized crime works, though.
That's true. But how is he? He's already got him. He's already offering baby mamas. I will pay all 20 years I'll pay all 20 years up front. So I don't think he's in.
It's a good point.
I don't think he's already in financial issues.
I think it's a relevant point.
But I'm not saying financial issues. I'm just saying, though, if he does have multiple babies and multiple baby mamas, there's some mean people out there. The sad thing about it for me is that it even entered my mind, and 5 years ago it never would have entered my mind.
Well, it didn't enter mine. Anthony Edwards
he
could win an NBA Finals. I mean, if they barely lost that game last night, everybody was fouling at the end. I wonder about that whole, and it worked out fine. Fouling up 3, totally get it. But they had the ball. I mean, there was a very difficult position for Minnesota to be in. But if that, would you not just like guard them up till half court and then foul? They had 3.5 seconds. That's my rant. It was very unwatchable. For it to be the end of a playoff game like that, I was bored to tears watching the last, 9 seconds tick off the clock.
Which took how many minutes?
Like 90. I was going to wait to take a shower, and I was like, I can't wait to take my shower. I literally brought the phone into we have a window to the outside in the shower, and I popped it up in the window, and I watched it while I was taking the shower because I was like, thought it would be over. It just kept not being over.
I'm totally a morning shower guy.
Because you're saying this, Brendan, I have to ask, would you be then, do you think the NBA should legislate the ability to take an advantage by fouling up 3?
No.
Should they legislate a penalty for an egregious, obvious foul while up 3 to take away the unwatchability?
But then
factor?
it's a judgment call. I understand teams have to do what they have to do to try to ensure that they can win in the NBA, the playoffs, and it's college basketball is the same way. It's always about fouling late, but the NBA with the ability to advance the ball on a timeout is what breaks it to me, because it's like, time doesn't have to pass. The ball's already down the floor. You had to wait until Minnesota ran out of timeouts, and then they were able to finally take a couple of seconds off the clock. But I will just say, I'm not like ready for a rule change over it, but it was not a pleasant 10 seconds of court time and like 30 minutes of real time.
I'm all over rules changes for things that are outrageous, egregious, preposterous. I want rules changes for that.
You're just getting the reaction over there.
Brendan.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Great stuff.
Hi.
Great talking to you.
It was good fun. Good fun. Tuesdays, we love it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Tuesday already. 4-day work week. That's pretty good. Matthew, is it you and I tomorrow? Or is it? And then Joe Roderick on Thursday?
I believe Joe Roderick's going to be joining us a little bit tomorrow.
Good.
And then it's going to be you and I on Thursday and Friday.
Looking forward to that.
And with the announcements being made about what's going to be happening in the same building here, hopefully maybe we get some of those people involved on as guests, because one of those guys happens to be very close to the Cardinals, and well, they're playing pretty good baseball right now.
Yeah, sounds good. Cardinals are on FanDuel this afternoon / this evening at 5:35. They take on the Orioles. And who's pitching for our Redbirds tonight?
I believe it is Palante.
That's it. Palante is going against
somebody.
Sugar something. Sugura? I think that's it.
Sugar something. Sugano. We're close.
Sugano. Sugano.
He's got good numbers, though. So
yeah, he looks pretty
we'll
good.
see what happens.
We will see you tomorrow at 10:02. Have a terrific Taco Tuesday, everybody.